Hello, I'm Cressida Cowell and I'm the author and the illustrator of the #Train Dragon books and the Wizards of Once series, and I'm also the Waterstones Children's Laureate. And here are my reading together tips. I would firstly say start really young. I mean, don't think the kid is too little to understand, because actually children, really babies, can take in so much more than you think they can, and very young, if you just set up that routine, try with the little ones pop-up books and things like that. They love those, and books when they're really little, I think they can only really see in black and white, but so there's lots of books for babies. Look out for that. Don't think they're going to be too young. Even if they're putting the book in their mouths and they're eating it, they're learning to enjoy books. Now, tip number 2 would be go for little and often and set up a routine. So I would say that book, bath, bed is a really good routine. I know as a working parent myself, you can be knackered by the end of the day, but it's so important to read. If it's just 10 minutes, sometimes what I used to say to myself, 10 minutes a day is just fine. And often you'll find when you've started the 10 minutes, you've sort of gone into it and you've started enjoying yourself, even though you were really tired at the beginning. So maybe try and do that. I mean, I think that old-fashioned thing of a book at bedtime is really good, because also it's when children need to wind down. It puts them in a kind of sleeping mood, and it's also, books are quite reflective. It's good for reflecting on the day often. Reading together, even, this is tip number 3, reading together, even when your kid can read it for themselves. That's so important. It's tempting when children can read themselves to say, okay, you can read now, so go and read on your own. But children are often smarter, much cleverer than their reading ability can access. So some children, even if they don't have a learning difficulty, I mean, some children may do, and they may be dyslexic, and books can vary for a dyslexic kid or a kid with a learning difficulty. Books can very easily come to represent something that makes them feel stupid, even though they're not stupid at all. And so they have all this wonderful film and telly that gets beamed magically into their heads, but books come to represent something boring. So you have to overturn that. So if you are reading to them, you can read things that are actually up to their intelligence, so be led by what your kid is interested in. So don't make them listen up. For me, it's all about getting them to love books and think that books are a joyful thing. So if your kid isn't enjoying something, don't carry on and think that you need to finish the book. Find something that they love. So they may be into football, they may love magic, they may love I don't know, nature, animals. There's lots of books about animals. There's a way in for your kid. So that's a really good tip. But try lots of different kinds of books. So try funny books, try scary books, try non-fiction. Some kids really love non-fiction. And there's so many amazing non-fiction books about, I don't know, whatever your kid is interested in, dinosaurs or again, animals. Mine loved. I had a huge big book that was just a book of, it was called Animal, great big book, and my kids loved that one. That can be a way in. All of these books, don't think just because it hasn't got a story in it, it's not getting them excited about reading, because it is. It's all about Guinness Book of Records. That's a good one. Put on silly voices. That's number 6. When you're reading aloud, I particularly write my books, there's my How to Train Your Dragon books, or my Wizard Once books, to be read aloud, because books read to you and an adult's voice live with you all your life. I remember every single book that was read to me by a teacher or a parent or a grandparent or grown up. So I write my books to be a performance. So in the How to Train Your Dragon books, I'll give Toothless a bit of just a standard, just because then it's fun for you to read it. And then something like Wizards of Once, these are my Wizards of Once books, all the sprites speak in this That's hissing and little tiny voices. I make the font really tiny, and you know, in How to Train Your Dragon, the book Over the Belt speaks with this big booming voice, and the lots of capitals, and I do that deliberately so that you as an adult will have fun putting on the performance, and so don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to act it out and pretend you're. I get these books read on audio by David Tennant. Try to pretend to be David Tennant. No, you won't succeed. But just have fun doing it. That's the whole point about sharing books together, is that the kid gets the message that books are fun, and then they can see if a book, this is why I deliberately set out to make the dads cry, or the mums laugh, you know, because if a book makes your dad cry or your mum laugh, it sends this really important message that books are important magical things that have the power to make my mum laugh or my dad cry. So don't be afraid to put on silly voices and make it a performance. And my last tip is that audiobooks still count as books. Sometimes parents feel that their children, it's so easily become a task and their children should be reading, and audiobooks are in some way a cheat. That isn't true, because the kid is still getting all the words. They're still getting all the words from an audiobook performance. I mean, film and television are not mediums actually with a lot of words in them. That's not what those mediums are. They're all about the visuals and the music. Books are all about words. They tell the story. And so your kids, even if they're not reading it, they're accessing all that lovely language, and language is the pathway of thought. So you want them to get all that language, and they're getting the story, the reflection of the story, the ideas in the story. And so it's not just a technical task of getting them to do that decoding, although that's part of it as well. Books they're getting, you know, you're training how to train your kid. That's really what 5 books are about, how to train your kid through books and the magic of books. They're still getting that through the audiobooks. So those are my tips for sharing books together. Sharing aloud, read aloud a book with your kid or the kid in your life.